Effects units and signal processors are really quite different things. Effects only work on the part of the signal that you send to them, which is then mixed back with the original dry signal. But signal processors work on the whole signal, so the whole signal has to be extracted from the mixer, fed through the processor, and then put back into the mixer. So the basic rule is, effects units are connected to the mixer via auxiliary sends, and signal processors are connected to insert points. Graphic equalizers can cut or boost a large number of fixed frequency bands. They're called graphic equalizers because you can see the shape of the EQ curve from the position of the controls. Even though the frequency bands are fixed, there are enough of them for you to be able to focus fairly precisely on one or more problematic frequency. They're especially useful for isolating and notching out feedback frequency hotspots and for generally improving the sound of a live venue. Parametric equalizers are similar to the swept band EQ sections on a mixing desk, but with an important extra feature. You can vary the width of the swept frequency band. This is useful creatively and for correcting sound. You might, for example, have to fix a nasty resonance in an acoustic instrument. With a parametric EQ, you can tune the EQ exactly and narrow the frequency band until it only affects the sound you want it to. Noise gates only allow sound over a certain level to pass through and mute everything else. Normally you'd set this level or threshold so that you get all the sounds you need, but none of the low-level but still annoying background sounds. When you have a lot of channels in use on a mixing desk, they all contribute unwanted noise to the final mix. By putting a noise gate on each input source, it's a bit like having an automatic mute control, which comes into play whenever there's a quiet bit. Gates are especially useful for drums, where they can stop the hi-hat spilling into a tom-tom microphone, for example. A compressor reduces the difference between the loudest and softest parts of a performance. It's as if someone was listening to the performance and moving a fader to make the levels constant. Below an adjustable threshold, audio passes through the compressor unchanged, but above the threshold the compressor will reduce the gain. The amount of reduction is called the compression ratio. Compressors are used a lot with singers to give a controlled, produced sound, and bass guitarists to give the performance more punch.
Tossed aside, never knowing how to break free.
Limiters are like compressors, but they won't let anything at all go above the threshold. They're extremely useful in live performances because they can save the mix from nasty overloads that might happen too quickly for a human engineer to respond to.
How to break free.
To set up a signal processor, connect it using an insert cable to an insert point, and remember that it can be a mono, group or mix insert point. Set the processor to unity gain, i.e. with no additional gain and no cut either. Adjust the signal processor to give the sound you want. If the processor settings have altered the mixer input and output levels, readjust them so that you have 0 on the meters.